Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. This time, we're diving deep into Kim Scott's Radical Candor.
Oh, yeah, this one's a classic.
It's a guide to better management, a fascinating look at how to be a great boss without, losing your humanity.
Yeah, and it really goes beyond just like those typical management buzzwords.
Yeah.
Scott gives us this really practical framework for building those strong relationships with your team and giving feedback that's both honest and impactful.
Right, exactly. And the whole book really boils down to two main themes: caring personally and challenging directly.
Yeah.
And Scott argues that, these two things are absolutely essential if you want to create a work environment where people feel valued and challenged and, motivated to do their best work.
It's not about just being nice all the time or being, a hard-nosed dictator or something.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot where you can be direct with your feedback, but also show them that you genuinely care about the person you're giving it to, as a human.
Yeah. And she kicks off the book with a pretty memorable story from her own career. She talks about accidentally praising an employee
Oh, yeah.
whose work was actually subpar.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, talk about a cringe-worthy moment.
Yeah, it's a great example of how, even with the best intentions, just avoiding those tough conversations can really do more harm than good.
Right.
Because, by not being direct with the issue, Scott, inadvertently prevented that employee from getting the feedback he needed to actually improve.
Yeah, and it highlights that whole idea of, like undoing years of being told, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right.
But, Scott argues that when you're in a management role, sometimes you have to say those tough things.
You got to give the hard feedback.
Right. But it's all about how you say it.
Exactly. And that's where I think her experience at Google comes in. This is where she meets Sheryl Sandberg, who
Yeah.
becomes like, this key mentor in her journey to becoming a better boss.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, Sheryl Sandberg. That's a pretty big name in the tech world.
Yeah.
How does she factor into this radical candor approach?
So Sandberg really helps Scott to see how feedback can be both critical and supportive. There's that famous part in the book where Sandberg calls out Scott for overusing in presentations.
Oh, really?
And she's direct about it, but she also, does it with kindness. And you can tell she has this genuine desire to help.
Right, so that's a perfect example of what Scott calls radical candor.
Exactly.
You're addressing the problem head on, but you're also showing that you care about the person and that you want them to grow.
Exactly. And I think Scott's time at Google, working in a culture where managers couldn't just rely on authority, they had to find these more effective ways to actually lead.
Yeah.
That becomes a real turning point for her.
It's interesting that, even after she found success at Google, she felt this need to keep exploring, this idea of what it means to be a great boss.
Yeah.
And that exploration eventually led her to Apple. Right?
Yes. She designed a management course for Apple University. It was there that she learned another super valuable lesson: the importance of recognizing different types of employees and, what motivates them. She talks about the difference between rock stars and superstars.
Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What's the distinction?
So rock stars are the employees that deliver those exceptional results consistently, but they're not necessarily looking for a quick promotion.
Oh, cool.
They're really reliable and steady, and they provide that solid foundation for the whole team.
Right.
Superstars, on the other hand, are those employees that are super ambitious and really driven by that rapid career growth.
Okay, so it seems like you really need a balance of both types to build a really effective team.
Absolutely. And recognizing those different motivations and aspirations is a key part of being a good manager.
Right.
It's about understanding, what drives each individual and how their current role actually fits into their own larger career goals.
So how do we actually get to this, magical place of radical candor?
Right.
It can't just be about, being nice or tough.
Yeah.
There's got to be more to it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that's where Scott brings in her 4-quadrant framework for giving guidance.
Okay.
And it's brilliant, really. It gives you this much more nuanced way to think about how we give and receive feedback.
Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for us. What are these 4 quadrants?
So the first quadrant is radical candor itself. And this is the one we should all be striving for. This is where you can challenge directly and care personally at the same time.
Right.
You're giving feedback that's honest and direct, but you're also showing empathy and a genuine desire to help the person get better.
So it's like that Sheryl Sandberg example. Direct feedback about the habit, but delivered with kindness and support.
Yes, exactly. Now, the next quadrant is obnoxious aggression. This is where you're being critical, but you're not showing any care or empathy at all. You're basically being a jerk.
Yeah.
It might get results in the short term, but it's not sustainable, and it just creates this toxic work environment.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like a very enjoyable experience for anyone.
No, it's not good.
Okay, what about the other two quadrants?
So the third quadrant is ruinous empathy. And this is where you care deeply about the person, but you're avoiding giving them that direct feedback because you don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right. I can see how that could be tempting. You want people to like you, and you don't want to create conflict.
Right.
But by not being honest with them, aren't you doing them a disservice?
You're exactly right. By shielding them from criticism, you're preventing them from getting the feedback they need to actually grow.
So it's about finding that balance between caring and challenging.
Yes.
You can't have one without the other. What about the last quadrant?
The last one's called manipulative insincerity. And it's honestly the worst of the worst. It's where you're neither challenging directly nor caring personally. So you're basically being fake and manipulative. And that erodes trust faster than anything.
Yikes. That one sounds like something straight out of like a bad sitcom.
Right.
So it seems like each of these quadrants highlights a specific pitfall that, managers should be aware of.
It's a really helpful framework for understanding how our intentions and our delivery can impact the way our feedback is received.
So we've got these 4 quadrants, but how do we actually put radical candor into practice?
Yeah, good question.
What are some concrete steps that we can take?
So Scott provides a lot of practical tips, and that's what we'll get into next. But one of the key takeaways is this. Just say it. Don't beat around the bush or sugarcoat things. Be clear and direct and get to the point. But remember, it's not about being brutal. It's about being honest while also showing that you care.
So it's about being real, authentic, and human. I like that. So less passive-aggressive emails and more, open, honest conversations.
Exactly. And when it comes to delivering criticism, Scott offers this really helpful framework. It's the situation behavior impact model.
Okay. Tell me more about that. How does that work?
So it's a way to structure your feedback so that it focuses on specific actions and their outcomes rather than making it about personality traits.
So instead of saying you're being negative, you might say, when you made that comment in the meeting, it seemed to dampen the team's enthusiasm for the project.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
You're focusing on the specific situation, the behavior, and the impact.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not labeling someone. You're addressing the behavior itself and its consequences. And it encourages a more, constructive conversation.
Right. It takes the sting out of the criticism and makes it more actionable.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about criticism.
Right.
Radical candor also means giving praise that is specific and sincere. Don't just say, good job, Point out what you appreciated and why it mattered.
Yeah, that makes the praise feel so much more genuine and less like you're just, going through the motions.
Exactly. Another important part of radical candor is encouraging people to criticize you. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, even if it's negative.
So regularly soliciting feedback from my team is actually part of this approach.
Absolutely. It shows them that you value their opinions and that you're committed to, continuous improvement. You're also modeling that vulnerability and openness to feedback that you want to see in others.
You're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. Now, one of the most practical tools that Scott talks about in the book is the Get Stuff Done wheel, or GSD wheel.
Okay, I've heard a lot about this GSD wheel. Sounds like some kind of productivity hack.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
It's really a framework for making decisions and executing them effectively as a team. It's all about, listening to everyone's ideas, clarifying, thinking, debating, rigorously making a decision, persuading those who weren't involved, and then learning from the results.
Oh, so it's this cyclical process. You're constantly going through these steps and refining your approach as you go.
Exactly. It's not about rushing through things. It's about getting them done and making sure everyone feels heard and involved in the process.
So walk me through the steps.
Yeah.
How does this GSD wheel actually work?
So the first step is listen. And I don't just mean passively hearing people, and actively soliciting input and making sure everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas. This is where Scott talks about, the importance of listening to the quiet ones, the ones who might not be as vocal in meetings, but who often have some really valuable insights.
I see. It's about creating that inclusive environment where everyone feels safe to speak up.
Exactly. Then comes clarify. You're taking those ideas and you're making sure they're fully understood. You ask questions, you probe for deeper meaning, and you make sure everyone is truly on the same page.
So you're basically leaving no room for ambiguity or misinterpretations.
Right. Then once those ideas are all clarified, you move to debate. This is where you encourage healthy, rigorous discussion. You test the ideas, poke holes in them, make sure they're truly the best solutions.
So no holding back here.
Yeah,
You really want to encourage that constructive criticism and make sure all perspectives are, being considered.
exactly. And then once you've had that vigorous debate, it's time to decide. You've heard all the arguments, you've weighed the pros and cons, and now it's time to actually make a clear, decisive choice.
No more waffling or second guessing.
Right.
It's time to commit to a course of action.
Right. But, making the decision is only one part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
The next step is persuade. So you got to bring on board the people who weren't involved in making that decision. You explain the reasoning, you address any concerns, and you make sure everyone understands why this is the best way forward.
Yeah, you're getting buy-in from the whole team.
Exactly. And then the final step is learn. This is where you reflect on the results, evaluate what worked and what didn't, and use those insights to inform your future decisions.
So it's that continuous learning process. You're
Yeah.
always striving to improve and refine your approach.
Exactly. It's about embracing feedback, being open to new ideas, and constantly looking for ways to get better as a team.
So this GSD wheel sounds like a pretty powerful tool. It combines collaboration with clear decision-making and, this focus on continuous improvement.
And it aligns perfectly with the principles of radical candor. It's about creating that open and honest dialogue, challenging each other's ideas, and working together to get the best outcome.
Now, within this GSD wheel, Scott puts a lot of emphasis on regular one-on-one meetings.
Yeah.
What's her take on those?
She really sees those one-on-ones as absolutely crucial for building strong relationships and creating that open communication that's so important for radical candor.
Mm-hmm.
They provide this dedicated space for the employee to set the agenda
Okay.
and for the manager to really listen and help them to clarify their thinking.
So it's not just a status update or a chance for the manager to, dictate what needs to be done.
No, not at all. It's about creating a space where the employee feels empowered to bring up issues, concerns, or any ideas they might have, knowing that they'll be heard and taken seriously.
And it's a chance for the manager to kind of step back from always being the one who has all the answers and to really listen to what their team members have to say.
Exactly. It should be a collaborative space where both parties, feel comfortable being open and honest.
So how do you actually make these one-on-ones effective? What are some tips from Scott?
Well, consistency is key. You got to make these meetings a regular thing, ideally weekly, and stick to the schedule as much as possible.
So no more canceling last minute because something else came up.
Right, these meetings should be a top priority, not an afterthought. And when you're in the meeting, truly focus on listening. Put away your phone, resist the urge to multitask, and give that other person your undivided attention.
So no checking email or sneaking glances at your to-do list.
Yeah, it's about being present and engaged in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And to help structure these meetings, Scott suggests dividing the time into 3 sections. Learn, listen, and clarify.
Okay, break down this framework for me. What do those 3 sections entail?
So the learn section is all about reviewing, those key metrics and getting a sense of what's going well and what's not. It's about having a data-driven conversation about, performance and progress.
So you're starting with an objective assessment of the situation.
Right. And then you move into listen. This is where you really delve into the employee's perspective. You ask open-ended questions, you're trying to understand their challenges, you're giving them the chance to share their thoughts and ideas freely.
So you're going beyond the numbers and really trying to understand the why behind the what.
Exactly. And then finally, the clarify section is where you identify any key decisions or debates that need to happen. You take those insights from the listen phase and you figure out, how to actually move forward.
So it's about turning those insights into actionable steps.
Exactly. And Scott also emphasizes the importance of documenting these conversations. She suggests, keeping a shared document to track key points, action items, and decisions.
That way you have a clear record of what was discussed and you know what needs to happen next.
It creates transparency and accountability, which are both essential for effective collaboration. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about how radical candor helps us to approach the different performance levels that we inevitably, encounter within our teams.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not every employee is going to be a superstar.
Yeah.
You're going to have some who consistently deliver those amazing results and others who might be, struggling to meet expectations. How does this framework help us to navigate those differences?
Well, that's where Scott's talent management grid comes in. It basically helps you categorize employees based on their past performance and their future growth, trajectory. Remember those rock stars and superstars we talked about earlier? This grid kind of expands on that whole concept.
Oh, okay. So you're not just looking at, how someone's performing currently, but also their potential and aspirations for the future.
Exactly. It's about understanding what really motivates each person and how their current role fits into their, bigger picture career goals. It's about seeing them as individuals, with their own unique strengths and aspirations.
Yeah, I like that. So how does this grid actually work? What are like the categories?
So it's divided into 4 quadrants: excellent performance steep growth trajectory, excellent performance gradual growth trajectory, poor performance steep growth trajectory, and poor performance negative growth trajectory.
Whoa, okay, let's break those down.
Right.
What does it mean to be in that excellent performance deep growth trajectory quadrant?
So those are your classic superstars. They consistently deliver exceptional results and they're eager to take on more responsibility and move up quickly in the organization. They're like high performers who are also super ambitious and driven.
Okay, so they're the ones always raising their hands for new projects and leadership opportunities.
Exactly. Now, those in the excellent performance gradual growth trajectory quadrant are also delivering great work, but they might not be seeking that rapid promotion.
Hmm.
Maybe their content in their current role, or maybe they have priorities outside of work that are preventing them from taking on more right now.
Right, so these are the rock stars we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
They're reliable and steady, and they create that solid foundation for any team.
Exactly. And their contributions are just as valuable as those of the superstars.
Hmm.
It's important to remember that not everyone is motivated by the same things,
Hmm.
and different roles require different kinds of contributions.
Right. It's about appreciating the diversity of talent and ambition within a team.
Yes, exactly.
What about the bottom two quadrants where, performance is an issue?
Yeah, those are where things can get a little trickier, but Radical Candor still provides you with a framework for how to navigate those conversations. Poor performance, steep growth trajectory describes someone who's ambitious and eager to grow, but their current performance just isn't meeting expectations.
So they have potential, but they're not quite there yet.
Right, and this is where that balance of caring personally and challenging directly is so crucial. You give that clear, direct feedback about their performance, but you also support their development and help them reach their full potential.
Right. It's about providing honest feedback, but
Mhm.
also offering guidance and support. You're not writing them off. You're trying to help them succeed.
Exactly. And then finally, we have the poor performance negative growth trajectories quadrant. This describes someone who is both underperforming and lacking the motivation or desire to improve.
Oof. That sounds like a tough spot for everyone involved.
Yeah, it's definitely the most challenging quadrant to manage.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes despite, your best efforts to provide feedback and support, you might have to make that difficult decision to let that person go.
Right. Firing someone is never easy.
Hmm.
What does Scott have to say about having those tough conversations?
So she really emphasizes not delaying the inevitable. If you've tried everything, the feedback, the support, exploring other options, and the person's performance is still not improving, it's not fair to them or to the team to keep them in a role where they're not succeeding.
Right. So you're being direct and honest, but also, compassionate in the process.
Exactly. You have that conversation with empathy and respect, but you're also clear about the decision and why it's being made. Mm-hmm.
And I think, this whole framework really underscores the importance of seeing each employee as an individual, understanding their motivations, their strengths,
Yeah.
and their areas for growth.
Right. It's moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach to management.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked a lot about one-on-ones and feedback, but how does radical candor apply to, larger team dynamics like meetings, collaboration, building that overall team spirit?
Yeah. So Scott offers some really great insights on how to build a culture of radical candor at that team level. It's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, challenging assumptions, and giving and receiving feedback openly and honestly.
So no more tiptoeing around sensitive topics or holding back on constructive criticism.
Exactly. You embrace those healthy debates and disagreements as opportunities for growth and innovation.
But that can be tough, especially in workplaces where people are used to avoiding conflict or where there's this fear of speaking up.
Right.
How do you create that kind of open environment? Well, it takes time and effort to build that trust and what they call psychological safety.
Mhm.
Scott really highlights the importance of leading by example. As a manager, you demonstrate that you're open to feedback, even if it's negative, and that you can take criticism gracefully.
But you're showing them that it's okay to be vulnerable, to admit when you're wrong, and that, everyone can learn and grow from those experiences.
Exactly. You're modeling the behavior that you want to see in others. And this also ties into creating a culture of shared ownership. you know?
Hmm.
It's not just about the manager telling people what to do. It's about empowering the team to actually take ownership of their work and to share their ideas and to really feel invested in the outcome.
It's a more collaborative approach rather than that, top-down hierarchy.
Exactly. Scott suggests regular team meetings as a really key part of this.
Yeah, but team meetings can be such a drain on productivity if they're not done well.
Oh, absolutely. That's why she emphasizes having a clear purpose and agenda for every meeting. Similar to the one-on-one structure, she suggests using a learn, listen, and clarify approach.
Oh, so you're applying those same principles of data-driven discussion, active listening, and clear action planning to the team setting.
Exactly. It helps create a structure that encourages participation, fosters collaboration, and makes sure everyone feels like their time is being used well.
So no more meandering off topic or having those meetings just for the sake of having meetings.
Right. And within those meetings, Scott encourages, that healthy debate and disagreement. It's about challenging each other's ideas respectfully, but with that goal of finding the best solution.
So you're not just rubber stamping, every idea that comes up.
Yeah.
You're encouraging people to think critically and to really push each other to come up with, the best possible solutions.
Exactly. And Scott even suggests dedicating specific meetings to this kind of robust debate, what she calls big debate meetings.
Interesting. Tell me more about these big debate meetings. What are they all about?
So these are dedicated meetings where the team comes together to really discuss and debate a specific topic or issue in depth.
Hmm.
It's a structured space for, rigorous discussion, making sure all perspectives are heard and considered.
Oh, that seems like a great way to ensure that those important but potentially uncomfortable topics don't get swept under the rug.
Exactly. It's about bringing those issues to the forefront and having those open, honest dialogues.
Right. It sounds like a great way to foster critical thinking, innovation, and better decision-making as a team.
It is. You're really tapping into the collective intelligence of the team and making sure everyone feels empowered to contribute their ideas and perspectives.
And I imagine, these big debate meetings often lead into big decision meetings.
You're exactly right. Once you've debated the issue and considered all sides, it's time to actually make a decision and commit to that course of action. No more analysis paralysis.
Yes, you move from discussion and debate to concrete action steps.
Exactly. Now, on the flip side of that, we also need to be mindful of meeting overload. Scott emphasizes the importance of creating what she calls meeting-free zones.
Meeting-free zones. That sounds like a breath of fresh air in today's meeting-heavy work culture.
It is. It's all about carving out blocks of time where meetings are strictly prohibited.
Mm-hmm.
This allows individuals and teams to actually focus on their work, get things done, and, avoid that constant interruption of back-to-back meetings.
Yeah, it's about protecting that valuable, focused work time.
Exactly. Scott recommends being really intentional about scheduling these meeting-free zones and communicating them clearly to the team.
Right. So no more assuming everyone's always available or,
Yeah.
sneaking in those quick meetings.
Right. It's about respecting everyone's time and creating that space for deep work and focused execution.
Mm-hmm.
So meeting-free zones are a great way to combat meeting fatigue and really boost productivity. You're creating this more balanced and sustainable work rhythm.
And this actually ties into another key concept, think time.
Absolutely. Think time is all about dedicating space for reflection planning and, strategic thinking. It's about giving your brain a break from constantly doing and allowing it time to process information, generate new ideas, and come up with those creative solutions.
It sounds essential, in today's fast-paced work environment where we're constantly just bombarded with information and demands on our time.
It really is. And just like with meeting-free zones, Scott suggests being really intentional about scheduling think time and, fiercely protecting it.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we actually need that mental space to do our best work. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. The one-on-ones, the team meetings, the meeting-free zones, think time.
Yeah.
It's all part of, creating this work environment that supports both individual growth and collective success as a team.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that, leadership is not just about telling people what to do. It's about creating those conditions where they can actually thrive, contribute their best work, and feel truly valued and respected.
And that is ultimately what Radical Candor is all about. You're bringing that human touch to the workplace
Yeah.
and creating this culture where people feel connected, engaged, and empowered.
It's about recognizing that, honest, open communication coupled with genuine care and empathy is truly essential for innovation, growth, and success.
And, it's not always easy. Radical candor can be uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure.
It can be messy.
Mm-hmm.
It requires vulnerability and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
But as Kim Scott argues, the results are well worth the effort.
Absolutely. You'll have a team that's more engaged, more productive, and ultimately
Well, I
happier.
wouldn't want that.
I know, right?
It's about creating that work environment where everyone can truly thrive,
Mm-hmm.
both professionally and personally. It's something we can all aspire to.
Absolutely. It's a call to action for all of us to embrace honesty, empathy, and that power of human connection in the workplace.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that being a great leader is not about being ruthless or intimidating. It's about caring deeply about your people and challenging them to be their best. And who knows, you might even learn a thing or two about yourself along the way.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's a journey of growth for everyone involved.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into radical candor. I hope you all found this exploration insightful and helpful. Remember, building a culture of radical candor takes time and effort. But as we've discussed today, the payoff is immense. So go forth and be radically candid.